because of all
Wow.
the work that I do to raise awareness around mental health and neurodiversity specifically.
Mhm.
I work in the UK, but also in France for different organizations, and I do a lot of public speaking, facilitating, and writing for them to raise the profile. Two of them specifically, diversity and ability, an amazing social enterprise in the UK, and Authentic, which is an innovation consultancy in France. So I do a lot of work with them. And also, I am part of the BPD Bunch, which is a talk show podcast. We're on YouTube, Instagram, all over the place, sharing stories specifically about borderline personality disorder because it's a very stigmatized, misunderstood mental health condition, which has the highest rates or amongst the highest rates of suicide.
So this idea of normal and neurodivergent, I think probably way back when a bunch of people, undoubtedly people of a certain ethnicity and a certain social class, when they got together, they probably had some internalized ableism themselves, and that some shame and some guilt that they hadn't fully processed. So they created this idea of normal so they can fit into that box.
Never
Yeah,
know.
I wasn't in the room for sure at that point, so I don't know,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't surprise me exactly what you said. And I think you bring a really, by the way, on sorry, on and the normal in a big air quote because I'm doing this in case
Right.
you can't see me,
Mm.
big air quotes on that word. We actually use the word neurotypical when we talk about neurodiversity. It's neurotypical like versus neurodivergent for the moment, but language is changing rapidly. But just to put that in
Right.
context, and I think the very important point that you brought is that idea of intersectionality, the cross of our identities. So the experience of someone who is diagnosed, let's say, as neurodivergent or is self-identifying as neurodivergent with other parts of their identity, like socioeconomic background, race and ethnicity, language, education, gender, sexual orientation, etc. Like all of these different identities come into play, and fortunately in some cases, unfortunately in others, inform the diagnosis and the care, and the support that you're able to receive. And there's a lot of work to be done to change that.
Or they just don't have the lived experience to know those situations. So how
Exactly.
can you expect them to know those things unless they hear it like what we're talking, how we're talking, and or they hear other things, but you
Mm.
can't expect somebody just to know things without that, you know.
Even within our community, like there are so many differences, there's so much diversity. Like I can't know what it's like to have a physical disability, for example, and to use a wheelchair or a mobility aid. I don't have that lived experience. So I'm always like constantly seeking, like meeting people in the community, like asking them and just learning all the time. Like I was working just the other day on writing a report for a client, which is about event technology to make events more accessible and inclusive. Well, of course, I can write a lot about the neurodiversity experience and, thinking about the five senses and how people's senses might be like overstimulated in different ways. But for the physical access, I need to rely on my colleagues who have that lived experience because there's only so much that I can offer as an ally. Like my knowledge doesn't expand to, having really lived through, going to an event and facing all the physical barriers. Yeah. So I think it's really important, even within our community, to share our stories with each other and learn from each other rather than just think, oh, I can talk for everybody, That's not the
Yeah,
case.
for sure. We we have to be able to be an example for, talking to other people with disabilities that have nothing to do with ours, for other people to be comfortable enough to talk to other people that have disability, the general public that doesn't, are able-bodied, and when they see that we're comfortable doing it and we can do it cordially, then maybe they'll do the same.